Kevin Can F Himself is one of the finest shows I've seen in the past few years. And after watching the third episode of Season 2, I was left wondering, is there something we've been missing? Is it possible that Kevin is not the cause of this sitcom world? I wanted to go into that theory and share my thoughts with you. But before we do that, please leave a like and subscribe. You can always unsubscribe at a later date if you don't like what I'm posting. It's completely free. I apologise that we're using the crappy mics. My good mic is broken temporarily. The spare part is in the mail, so it should be better soon. Alright, let's crack on. So the first thing I want us to look at is the first scene featuring Kevin and Allison in the episode. Kevin is celebrating Halloween, and a few moments here are worth talking about. We begin with a white cloth spread across the doorway, which Allison walks into and is covered in. This immediately reminded me of Miss Havisham, a character in the Charles Dickens novel Great Expectations. The character is a wealthy spinster once jilted at the altar, who insists on wearing her wedding dress for the rest of her life. Whilst her story may not apply to Allison directly, the imagery this shot conjured up certainly reminded me of it. A woman stuck alone in white, amongst cobwebs, just waiting for her life to end, which is exactly what Allison is doing in this episode. She is waiting until she can successfully fake her own death and escape the world she is trapped in. Later in the episode, she also almost decides to take on the identity of someone who had a fiancé, so she could well have ended up wearing a pretend white wedding dress for the rest of her life, keeping up the pretense of the woman she's being, having been formally engaged. The cobwebs could also symbolise death, and when juxtaposed with an image from later on in the episode, when Allison is laying in an empty grave, it's quite fitting. The other moment in the scene I wanted to talk about is when Allison goes to leave, but Kevin wants her to stay. Allison says, "The other week you said, 'Hey babe, no offense, but it's wicked cool when you're not here.'" To which Kevin replies, "Wow, that was mean. I don't sound anything like that." Is it possible that he isn't aware of what he's like outside of the sitcom? Is it possible that Kevin has dual personalities, and we see him one way in the sitcom world, but when the cameras stop rolling, he's much crueler, mirroring how we sometimes only see the front that partners put on for other people, as they hide the abuse behind closed doors? It's also possible he was just making a joke about how his voice doesn't sound anything like that, and I'm just reading too much into it. Probably the latter. It is interesting how we haven't had a non-sitcom scene with Kevin yet. We see that Neil can break free from the sitcom, so can Patty and Allison. But as far as we know, Kevin can't. Does he ever break free? Could it be that we simply don't see these moments? Now on to the main part of this theory. Maybe the sitcom isn't caused by Kevin. It's caused by Allison. In the flashback when her mum appears, played by the incredible Perry Gilpin, Roz from Frasier, the world turns into a sitcom. Possibly the first time we've seen this happen without Kevin being there. She met Kevin later on that day, so when the sitcom began, he wasn't even in her life. Allison is the one causing the sitcom to happen, as an excuse to deal with trauma. It is hinted at the fact that she has a bad relationship with her mum, based on her inability to talk with her openly. She also lectures her for eating, possibly hinting at some kind of eating disorder in the past. Maybe. I'm certain there's something darker behind the relationship between these two people. There's got to be. Perhaps in the same way that she excuses Kevin's behaviour by picturing a perfect sitcom life, she uses a sitcom to lessen the blow of having an abusive mother. Allison's mother says, "I can't stress enough how I don't care." She says it with the infliction of it being a joke, but without a laugh track. It's actually just a cruel thing to say, especially to a daughter who is mourning the death of her father. Have you ever seen those clips on YouTube of sitcoms without laugh tracks? The Big Bang Theory becomes the least funny thing you've ever seen, as if it didn't hold that crown already. Friends becomes the creepiest show on TV. They don't criticise a show when its laugh track is removed because the bad pacing ruins the comedy. It is more of a critique of the humour itself, like the laugh track is inserted into where the writers think people should laugh. But when it's removed, you realise the joke isn't funny. Seinfeld still holds up, like. Go watch a clip of Seinfeld without the laugh track. After this video, of course. Please. I need the watch time. But it's still funny. If you remove the laugh track, and it's still funny, then you'll be laughing and you probably won't even notice. If you remove the laugh track and the joke didn't land, so nobody is laughing, then it's awkward. If you remove the laugh track from this line from Allison's mother, you don't laugh. You just think, That's cruel. She then berates her for the poor buffet she has put out for the funeral, giving the woman a genuinely hard time over it. This woman is cruel and horrible. I genuinely believe that her mother is the reason why Allison disassociates with the use of the sitcom lens that she occasionally sees the world through. Kevin is a man of two halves. The abusive husband who we get glimpses of in the sitcom world, but is excused under the guise of it being your typical sitcom husband, and the joker around his friends. If Allison's mother was a real person, I bet you any money that all her friends would be saying, oh, she's got such a dry sense of humour, which is just an excuse for the fact that she's a massive prick to be around. I bet you she is the type of person who uses the line, oh, I'm only joking, to cover all manner of sins. And this encouragement to see the funny side of things is what encourages Allison to try and see things from that different perspective. Everywhere she goes, people say, Kevin is so funny. So she tries to see him that way, just like she does with her mother, because she has no choice, no other option. She does it to get through the day. So the big question is, why did she choose Kevin? Well, he's sort of the prime example of your sitcom dad, isn't he? Kevin is an overweight, mediocre white man living in suburban USA. He's in a job that he's not particularly good at, never gets fired, isn't very smart, lacks common sense, and now even has an inexplicably attractive wife to boot. And outside of him being a perfect fit for that mould, it's also common for victims of abusive parents to end up in abusive relationships, because they don't know anything different and fall into the same old traps. It seems fitting that one of the first things that Patty says to Allison when she approaches her in the bar is, run for your life. But she didn't listen, because all Allison ever knew was abuse. It's also possible that the reason why Allison's mother is seen in sitcom form is because hating your mother-in-law is one of the typical sitcom husband things to do. It's right there in the sitcom husband starter pack between really loves his younger and smarter wife, and smart idea to get around responsibilities always ends in disaster. Allison is that wife. She is not only younger and smarter, but much more attractive. Just like Leah Remini in King of Queens, Erin Hayes and Kevin Can Wait, Patricia Heaton and Everybody Loves Raymond. And we always wonder why they're married when they're nothing alike and they bicker all the time. But this sitcom turns that on its head. We see exactly why they're still married. They're trapped. But is it possible that she is the one forcing the sitcom scenes into existence as an excuse for still being married to him? This is her defense mechanism. All those other couples on TV always stay together. I don't think there's ever been a sitcom where the main couple got divorced. When there was a dispute between Martin Lawrence and Tisha Campbell behind the scenes of the show Martin, they didn't even break the characters up. They just went to ridiculous measures to make sure they never shared a scene together. She vanished from the show for a while before returning for the finale, which they managed to film by having a bunch of revolving doors. The two actors coming and going and just missing each other every time. Tisha's character was unable to escape the sitcom hell. Nobody can escape. Well, there was Kevin Can Wait, where they killed off the wife in the gap between seasons so they could do a soft reboot of King of Queens. And that drama is sort of what this show is based on. Erin Hayes was announced as being part of the cast for season 2, and she's yet to make an appearance. Could she possibly be starring as a version of her character from Kevin Can Wait? They could not mention her surname for legal reasons and have her admit to having faked her own death to get away from her Kevin. It's possible. What do you think? Is Allison's mother the original catalyst for the sitcom world we get glimpses into? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please leave a like and subscribe, and leave a comment if you can. It really helps me out a lot, and you can always unsubscribe at a later date if you don't like what I'm posting. It's cool. And while you're here, check out my channel. We recently did a video on She-Hulk, House of the Dragon, and we did a few Better Call Saul videos as well. Alright, I'll leave it there. Let me know if you want me to cover episode 4. Bye folks.